Back in 2021, when I was 27, I took a temporary construction job outside of Cleveland. The pay was good, but the commute from my apartment was horrible, sometimes close to 2 hours because of roadwork and snow. One of the guys on the crew told me about a cheap rental house sitting empty near the work site. That should have been my first warning. He said the owner barely charged anything because nobody wanted to stay there long term. According to him, it was just an old place with bad history, which usually means murders, suicides, or drug stuff. I didn't really care. I was exhausted from driving every day and wanted somewhere closer. The owner, a skinny older guy named Frank, met me outside the property after work one evening. The house sat alone at the end of a dead road surrounded by woods. It wasn't huge, but it looked older than every other home nearby. The siding was faded almost gray, and several windows looked newer than the rest, like they'd been replaced recently. What I remember most was how quiet it felt. Not peaceful quiet. Dead quiet. No insects, no dogs barking, no traffic. Just wind. Frank unlocked the front door but didn't go inside immediately. He stood there staring into the darkness of the hallway before finally stepping aside. "You work nights?" he asked. "Sometimes." "You live alone?" "Yeah." He nodded slowly like that answer bothered him. The inside smelled dusty, like old carpet and wet wood. The furniture looked cheap and mismatched, but it was enough for a temporary stay. Kitchen, living room, one bathroom downstairs, 2 bedrooms upstairs. Simple. While he showed me around, Frank avoided looking toward the staircase. At one point, he stopped talking completely. I realized he was staring at the ceiling above us. "You hear that?" he asked quietly. I listened. Nothing. Then, a faint creak, like someone shifting their weight upstairs. Frank immediately forced a smile. "Old house," he said quickly. The rent was unbelievably cheap. I signed that night. Before leaving, Frank handed me the keys and said something that stuck with me. "If you hear knocking after midnight, don't answer the bedroom door." I laughed because I thought he was joking. He didn't laugh back. The first week there was normal. Mostly. I worked long hours, came home exhausted, microwaved food, watched YouTube, then slept. The house felt creepy at night, but old houses usually do. The noises started around day 8. Small things. Footsteps overhead while I sat downstairs. Cabinet doors slightly open after I knew I'd closed them. The upstairs bedroom door slowly drifting open by itself. I blamed the uneven floors and old wood. Then one night I woke up around 2:30 a.m. because I heard movement in the hallway outside my room. Not footsteps. Scratching. Like somebody dragging their fingernails slowly across the wall. I sat upright in bed listening. Scratch. Scratch. It moved down the hallway toward my door. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. The scratching stopped instantly. Then came 3 knocks. Knock. 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 Soft. Right on the bedroom door. I remember feeling annoyed more than scared. I thought maybe somebody broke into the house. I got out of bed and opened the door immediately. The hallway was empty. The bathroom door at the far end sat partially open, darkness inside. That's when I noticed the smell. Rotting meat. Strong enough to make me gag. I checked the bathroom first. Nothing. Then the second bedroom. Empty. The smell disappeared as quickly as it came. I searched the whole house holding a kitchen knife like an idiot, but every door and window was locked. I barely slept after that. The next morning, I found thin scratches running along the hallway wall outside my room. 4 parallel lines. Long enough to stretch almost 6 feet. A few days later, I asked Frank if anybody had died in the house. He got quiet. Why? I keep hearing stuff upstairs. He stared at me for several seconds before answering. Previous tenant left suddenly. Why? He said somebody was living in the walls. I laughed nervously. Frank didn't. Then he told me something even worse. The tenant before that claimed someone knocked on his bedroom door every night around the same time. 2:30 a.m. Exactly when mine started. I should have left right there. But I didn't. Because I'm stubborn, and because I didn't want to lose money. That decision still bothers me. The worst night happened during a thunderstorm in November. The power kept flickering while rain slammed against the windows. I was downstairs watching TV when I heard a loud bang upstairs. It sounded like furniture tipping over. I grabbed my flashlight and went up. The second bedroom door was open. I know I'd closed it earlier. Inside, the room looked untouched except for the closet door, which now stood wide open. The smell hit me again. Rotten meat. Much stronger this time. Then I heard breathing. Not mine. Slow, wet breathing coming from inside the closet. I froze. Every instinct told me to run downstairs, but I forced myself closer. The flashlight beam shook in my hand. The closet was deep and packed with hanging coats left by previous tenants. The breathing stopped. For a second, everything went completely silent, except the rain outside. Then one of the coats moved. Not swayed. Moved. Like somebody underneath it shifted position. I backed up immediately. "Who's there?" I shouted. No answer. I stepped forward again and pulled the coats aside. Nothing behind them. Just the back wall. But scratched into the wood were dozens of words carved over each other. Don't look at it. Don't let it in. It pretends to stay awake. 2:30. 2:30. 2:30. I felt genuine panic for the first time. I left the room and slammed the door shut. That's when something sprinted across the hallway upstairs. I only saw it for maybe half a second. Tall, unnaturally thin, gray skin. It moved on all fours impossibly fast before disappearing around the corner toward my bedroom. The sound of its hands slapping against the floorboards is something I still hear in nightmares. I ran downstairs instantly and stayed there the rest of the night holding a fireplace poker. Around 2:30 a.m., the knocking started again. This time downstairs. 3 slow knocks against the living room wall behind me. Knock. 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 Then scratching. Inside the wall. Moving upward. Like something climbing between the floors. The next day, I searched the house carefully. I found an access panel in the upstairs hallway ceiling, leading to a small attic space. I almost wish I'd never opened it. The attic was cramped and filled with insulation. My flashlight barely cut through the darkness. At first I thought it was empty. Then I noticed blankets in the far corner. And food wrappers. Recent ones. My stomach dropped. Someone had been up there. I climbed farther inside and found more things. Empty water bottles. A flashlight. A stained mattress. And hundreds of scratches covering the beams. Not random scratches. Words. The same phrases over and over. It walks at night. Don't fall asleep. It uses voices. Don't open the door. Then I found photographs. Pictures of the hallway outside my bedroom. Pictures of me sleeping. Close-up photos taken from inside my room while I was unconscious. I nearly threw up. I climbed down from the attic so fast I almost fell off the ladder. I called the police immediately. 2 officers came out and searched the house thoroughly. They found the attic set up but no person. One officer suggested a squatter had been living there and sneaking around while I slept. That explanation made sense. Until they checked the attic dust. Only one set of footprints existed. Mine. The officers eventually left after telling me to stay somewhere else temporarily. I agreed. But before leaving, I decided to grab clothes from upstairs. Huge mistake. While stuffing clothes into a duffel bag, I heard my own voice downstairs. Caleb? I froze. It sounded exactly like me. Then again, Caleb, come here. I slowly stepped into the hallway. The staircase below was dark. Hello? I called. No response. Then my voice spoke again from downstairs. I found something. Every hair on my body stood up. Because I hadn't spoken. The thing downstairs was mimicking me. I backed toward my room quietly. Then came the sound of footsteps climbing the stairs. Slow, heavy, one at a time. The hallway light suddenly flickered out. Darkness swallowed everything. The footsteps stopped halfway up the staircase. Then silence. I could hear breathing again. Wet breathing. Close. Way too close. I pointed my flashlight toward the stairs and saw fingers gripping the edge of the wall. Long gray fingers. Then part of a face slowly leaned into view. Its eyes reflected white in the flashlight beam. Its mouth stretched far too wide. And it was smiling. Not a human smile. Something trying to imitate one. I ran. I didn't even grab my bag. I flew downstairs, slammed through the front door, and drove away without looking back. In the rearview mirror, I saw movement in the upstairs window. Something tall standing behind the glass watching me leave. I stayed at a motel that night. Around 2:30 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered half asleep. For several seconds, all I heard was static. Then breathing. Wet breathing. And finally my own voice whispering, "Come back." The line disconnected. I changed my number the next morning. A week later, I returned to the house during daytime with 2 friends to collect the rest of my stuff. The front door was open when we arrived. I knew I'd locked it. The house smelled horrible now. Like decay. My friends stopped joking the second we walked inside. Something felt wrong immediately. One of them actually asked if an animal died in the walls. Upstairs, my bedroom looked untouched. But the second bedroom was different. The walls were covered completely in scratches now. Thousands of them. And written across the ceiling in huge, jagged letters was, "You left me alone." My friend Marcus laughed nervously and asked if I'd done it as a prank. Then we heard movement above us. In the attic. Heavy crawling. Back and forth rapidly. Marcus opened the attic hatch before I could stop him. The ladder unfolded slowly. Darkness above. The crawling stopped. Marcus shined his flashlight upward. For 2 full seconds, nothing happened. Then he screamed and fell backward off the ladder. Something moved in the darkness above him impossibly fast. We all ran downstairs instantly. While reaching the front door, we heard pounding overhead. Not footsteps. Like something throwing itself against the ceiling. Dust rained down everywhere. Then came the knocking. 3 loud knocks directly from inside the wall beside the front door. Marcus yanked the door open. Before leaving, I looked back one last time. I saw a face peeking around the upstairs hallway corner. Pale. Smiling. Watching us. Then it disappeared. The police investigated again after Marcus reported it. They found nothing. No squatter. No evidence of anyone living there. Eventually, the owner abandoned the property completely. About 6 months later, the house burned down during the night. According to the report, investigators couldn't determine the cause. Part of me was relieved. I thought whatever was inside had finally been destroyed. Then last year I got an email from someone I didn't know. The subject line read, Mercer Roadhouse. Inside was one sentence. I think something is living in my attic. Attached was a photo. The picture showed scratches carved into wood beams. 4 words repeated over and over. Don't open the door. This happened to me in late 2019 in Kazan City, and even now I still avoid talking about it in person because people either laugh at me or assume I'm exaggerating. I'm not. At the time, I was 24 and working night shifts for a small call center account. The pay wasn't great, but it was enough to help my parents and afford a cheap place closer to work. A coworker told me about an old house being rented out in a quiet neighborhood near the edge of the city. According to him, the owner was desperate because previous tenants never stayed long. That should have been enough warning. But in the Philippines, cheap rent in Metro Manila feels almost impossible to find, especially for a whole house instead of a cramped apartment. So I went to see it. The place sat at the end of a narrow street where most of the homes were newer and brightly painted. This house looked completely different from everything around it. Older, darker, like it belonged to another decade. The lower half of the exterior walls had ugly water stains reaching almost chest high, as if the house had once been submerged. The owner, a heavy-set man named Ruben, unlocked the rusted gate and immediately started apologizing for the smell. Inside, the house smelled damp, like old floodwater that never fully dried. He explained that years ago, a typhoon flooded the entire area badly. According to him, the house had been repaired afterward, but some damage remained. The place had 2 floors, living room downstairs, kitchen, 1 bathroom, then 2 bedrooms upstairs. Simple. While showing me around, Ruben kept glancing toward the staircase nervously. You live alone? He asked. Yeah. You sleep upstairs? Probably. He hesitated before saying, if you hear crying at night, just ignore it. I actually laughed because I thought he was joking. He didn't smile. I moved in 3 days later. For the first week, nothing unusual happened. The neighborhood was quiet. People kept to themselves. I worked nights and usually got home around 3 or 4 in the morning. The only thing that bothered me was how cold the upstairs hallway always felt. Not aircon cold, wet cold. Like standing inside a room after heavy rain. The second strange thing was the sound. Almost every night around dawn, I'd hear dripping water somewhere upstairs. Drip, drip, drip. I checked multiple times but never found leaking pipes or puddles. Then the crying started. The first time I heard it, I thought it came from outside. A woman softly sobbing somewhere far away. I ignored it and tried sleeping. But over the next few nights, the crying sounded closer each time. Eventually, it sounded like it was coming from inside the house. One morning after work, I was brushing my teeth in the bathroom when I suddenly heard quiet crying directly outside the door. Not loud, just soft, shaky sobs. I froze immediately because I knew I was alone. The crying stopped after maybe 10 seconds. I opened the bathroom door quickly. Nobody there. But the upstairs hallway floor was wet, not soaked, just damp enough to leave footprints. Bare footprints. Leading toward the second bedroom. I remember feeling irritated more than scared at first. My brain kept trying to explain everything logically. Maybe rainwater. Maybe a stray cat somehow got inside. Maybe neighbors messing around. But deep down, I knew those explanations didn't make sense. The second bedroom stayed empty because I mostly used it for storage. That room always felt wrong. The air smelled moldy no matter how much I cleaned. And every single time I entered, I felt watched. One afternoon, I decided to deep clean the entire house. While moving old furniture in the second bedroom, I noticed part of the wooden floor sounded hollow. I pulled the rug aside and found a square section of wood, slightly raised compared to the others, like a hidden hatch. Curiosity got the better of me. Using a screwdriver, I pried it open. Underneath was a shallow compartment filled with muddy water. And inside the water was a small pink sandal. A child's sandal. I immediately dropped the cover shut. Something about seeing it made my stomach turn. That night, I asked an elderly neighbor about the house. The moment I mentioned the address, her expression changed. She asked me quietly, "You hear the woman crying already?" I didn't answer. The old woman told me the story anyway. Years earlier, during severe flooding from a typhoon, a mother and her daughter became trapped inside the house. The floodwater rose too fast. According to neighbors, rescuers arrived too late. The mother survived. The daughter didn't. After that, people claimed they heard crying from the house during storms or late at night. The mother apparently went insane afterward and continued living there alone for years before disappearing. I asked what she meant by disappearing. The old woman shrugged. Nobody saw her leave. After hearing that story, the house started feeling different. Every noise suddenly sounded intentional. At night, I'd hear footsteps upstairs while I was downstairs eating. Slow, wet footsteps. Sometimes I'd wake up to dripping sounds directly beside my bed. But the creepiest thing was the smell. Whenever the crying started, the house filled with the smell of dirty flood water, like canals after heavy rain. One night around 2 a.m., a storm knocked out the power in the entire neighborhood. The house went completely dark. I used my phone flashlight and waited downstairs hoping electricity would return soon. Rain hammered the roof violently. That's when I heard movement upstairs. Heavy movement. Not footsteps. More like dragging. Something slowly being pulled across the floor. Then came the crying. Louder than ever before. A woman sobbing uncontrollably upstairs. I sat frozen on the couch listening. Then I heard another sound. A child coughing. Weak. Wet coughing. Right above me. I grabbed a flashlight from the kitchen drawer and slowly climbed the stairs. The crying stopped the moment I reached the hallway. Everything went silent except rain outside. My flashlight beam shook badly. The second bedroom door stood open. I know I'd left it closed. The wet smell pouring from the room was unbearable now. I stepped closer carefully. The room looked darker than the hallway somehow. Then I heard splashing. Tiny splashes. Inside the room, I pointed the flashlight downward. Water covered the floor. Not a puddle. Several inches of filthy, dark water. I stumbled backward in shock, because that water absolutely had not been there earlier. Floating near the center of the room was the pink sandal I'd found hidden under the floor. Then something moved beneath the water. A shape. Small. Human-sized. Crawling slowly toward me underwater. I slammed the door shut instantly and ran downstairs. The crying started screaming behind the door. Not normal screaming. It sounded drowned, like somebody choking on water while shrieking. I locked myself inside the bathroom downstairs until morning. When sunlight came through the windows, I finally forced myself upstairs again. The second bedroom floor was completely dry. No water, no sandal, nothing. The next week, things became unbearable. Cabinets opened by themselves. Wet footprints appeared constantly. The crying happened almost every night. Then came the whispering. I'd hear a woman's voice softly speaking somewhere nearby, but I could never understand the words. One morning after work, I found all the faucets in the house running. Every single one. The sinks overflowed onto the floors. And written across the fogged bathroom mirror were the words, "Where is my child?" I moved out that same day. Or at least I tried to. My friend Carlo helped me pack during the afternoon. I didn't tell him the full story because I knew how insane it sounded. But he noticed the atmosphere immediately. "You sure nobody else stays here?" he asked while carrying boxes downstairs. "No." He frowned. "I keep hearing someone upstairs." That made my chest tighten. While packing the kitchen, we suddenly heard loud banging from above us. 3 massive bangs. Like furniture being thrown. Carlo ran upstairs before I could stop him. I followed seconds later. The second bedroom door was wide open again. Water slowly leaked from underneath it. Carlo stood frozen in the hallway, staring inside. "What the hell?" he whispered. The room was flooded, at least ankle deep now. Dark, filthy water covered everything. Floating in the middle of the room was a woman. At first I thought it was an actual dead body. Long black hair spread across the water. White dress submerged beneath her. Face hidden underwater. Then her head slowly turned toward us. I'll never forget that face. Her skin looked swollen and pale blue. Her mouth hung open unnaturally wide, with dark water pouring from it. And her eyes, they looked completely white. Carlo screamed first. The woman suddenly stood upright in the water impossibly fast. The sound she made didn't even sound human anymore. It sounded like drowning. Like dozens of desperate gasps mixed together. We ran downstairs immediately. Behind us, we heard water splashing violently through the hallway upstairs. Then footsteps. Fast footsteps charging down the stairs after us. The front door wouldn't open at first. I nearly had a panic attack trying to unlock it while Carlo screamed behind me. The footsteps stopped directly on the other side of the hallway. I turned around for half a second. A woman stood at the bottom of the staircase, dripping black water onto the floor. Her neck bent sideways unnaturally. And beside her stood a small child holding her hand. Neither of them blinked. The child slowly pointed at me. Then both opened their mouths at the same time. Water poured out endlessly. The door finally unlocked and we sprinted outside. The moment we reached the street, the sounds stopped completely. Carlo refused to ever talk about what we saw. He moved to another company shortly afterward. As for me, I stayed with relatives for months because I couldn't sleep properly anymore. The worst part is what happened later. Around 6 months after moving out, I searched the address online out of curiosity. I found a local news article. A family had recently rented the house. According to neighbors, they suddenly disappeared after only 2 weeks. Police entered the property and reportedly found floodwater covering the entire second floor, despite there being no plumbing damage or rain that week. No trace of the family was ever found. The house still stands there today. Abandoned again. Sometimes during typhoon season, I still think about that woman standing at the bottom of the stairs, holding the child's hand. Waiting. Like they never left the house at all.